to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. The United States is confident that China is considering providing lethal material to support the Russian forces invading Ukraine, according to senior officials, and Beijing has so far forcefully denied this allegation. Due to unfavorable weather and slippery terrain of Mayon volcano, rescuers are having a hard time transporting the remains of Cessna 340 passengers. 3 freed hostages arrived at Port Moresby Airport after a week of negotiations between police and armed kidnappers. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. headed to the South Road Properties for the groundbreaking of the Phase 1 of Cebu City Government's South Coastal Urban Development SCUD project, which includes medium-rise buildings for families displaced by the city's clearing of structures built within the 3-meter easement of the 8 major waterways. First in our news, the United States is confident that China is considering providing lethal material to support the Russian forces invading Ukraine, according to senior officials today, and Beijing has so far forcefully denied these allegations. Take a look.
The U.S. is the biggest source of weaponry for the battlefield in Ukraine. Just yesterday, President Biden announced a further $5 million worth of military aid to Ukraine. It makes people wonder what the U.S. is up to by falsely claiming that China is offering weapons, and whether the U.S. finds it conscionable to tell the world it wants peace and yet sits and watch its defense industry lining up their profit. We also saw what the U.S. did in Afghanistan with its strategy of fighting to the last Afghan. Does it now want Ukraine to fight till the last Ukrainian? There are more than enough facts to show the true nature of the U.S. as a source of trouble rather than defender of peace for the world. The China-Russia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership of Coordination is built on the basis of non-alliance, non-confrontation, and non-targeting of any third party, which is within the sovereign right of any 2 independent states. We do not accept the U.S.'s finger-pointing or even coercion targeting China-Russia relations. The U.S. should seriously reflect on what it has done, stop fanning the flames or profiting from it, and stay truly committed to promoting peace talks as China has been doing.
And while they have seen no sign Beijing has done so yet, they underscored the U.S. message this weekend that China should not cross that red line. We're confident that the Chinese leadership is considering the provision of lethal equipment to Russia, CIA Director William Burns told CBS on Sunday in a rare interview, but he added, "We also don't see that a final decision has been made yet, and we don't see evidence of actual shipments of lethal equipment." U.S. officials have launched a broad diplomatic offensive over the past week to warn China against providing such lethal assistance, which experts say could have a profound impact on the war in Ukraine as it enters its 2nd year. On Wednesday, Mr. Wang Yi met in Moscow with President Vladimir Putin, underscoring the close ties between their 2 countries. U.S. officials say Chinese companies are already providing non-lethal equipment to Russia. Now, China has avoided condemning Russia's Ukraine invasion, and on Friday, it put forth a 12-point proposal calling for dialogue between the warring sides, respect for territorial integrity, and a ban on any use of nuclear weapons. Take a look.
你提到了今天中方发布的关于政治解决乌克兰危机的中国立
China's position on the political settlement of the Ukraine crisis. First, I would like to provide more details. President Xi Jinping has put forward 4 principles, joint efforts in 4 areas and 3 observations on Ukraine, which outlines China's fundamental approach to the issue. We take an objective and just position on the Ukraine issue, work actively to promote peace talks, and play a constructive role in facilitating a resolution to the crisis. 1 year since the full escalation of the crisis, we have formulated and released the position document, laying out our basic position and propositions. The document covers 12 aspects, namely respecting the sovereignty of all countries, abandoning the Cold War mentality, ceasing hostilities, resuming peace talks, resolving the humanitarian crisis, protecting civilians and prisoners of war, keeping nuclear power plants safe, reducing strategic risks, facilitating green exports, stopping unilateral sanctions, keeping industrial and supply chains stable, and promoting post-conflict reconstruction. On this basis, China stands ready to continue working with the international community to contribute to the political settlement. The Ukraine issue has complex historical backgrounds. China takes a just and objective position on this issue, and we have been committed to promoting peace talks. We stand on the side of peace and dialogue. That is the right side of the history. China would like to start from the position paper and work with the rest of the world to contribute to the political settlement of the crisis.
On the proposals and the points presented by China, so first of all, China doesn't have much credibility because they have not been able to condemn the illegal invasion of Ukraine. And they also signed, just days before the invasion, an agreement between President Xi and President Putin on limitless partnership with Russia.
Eine überwältigende Mehrheit der Staaten in den Vereinten Nationen hat gestern bekräftigt, wenn Friede einkehren soll, dann muss es ein gerechter und dauerhafter Friede sein. Jeder konstruktive Vorschlag, der uns auf dem Weg zum gerechten Frieden näher bringt, ist hochwillkommen. Ob die Weltmacht China eine solche konstruktive Rolle spielen will, ist noch fraglich.
The PRC has been providing important support to Russia over the course of this last year. They attempt to maintain this veneer of neutrality, professing to the world that they're not taking a side, but they've clearly chosen a side. In the weeks leading up to this invasion, when it was crystal clear, at least should have been crystal clear to the PRC, what Russia intended, they signed this communique, 5,000-word communique that spoke of a partnership without limits. Over the course of Russia's aggression in Ukraine, the PRC has provided diplomatic support, they've provided political support, they provided economic support. They have echoed and parroted Russia's propaganda, its lies, its distortions, its mistruths, in an effort to shield Russia and to propagate what it is trying to feed the world, a steady diet of disinformation and lies.
In tonight's other news, due to unfavorable weather and slippery terrain of Mayon volcano, rescuers are having a hard time transporting the remains of the Cessna 340 passengers. Now, bodies of the 4 passengers on board the aircraft were successfully recovered on Saturday, February 25. Now, this was a week after Cessna 340 was reported missing. Take a look. Now, responders are struggling to carry the 4 retrieved bodies due to the unfavorable weather and the steep and slippery terrain of Mayon, according to Kamalig Mayor Carlos Baldo Jr. in a Facebook post. Baldo added that as relaying the bodies through the anchor system depicts difficulty in rope management because of the volcano's high-angled slopes, the incident management team proposed 20 personnel per body as one of their alternative measures to relay down the bodies for 200 to 300 meters and will be hoisted as the team locates a safe landing zone. Responders were utilizing anchor bolts in relaying the bodies shown down the slope down the slopes of Mayon volcano, according to the mayor. Members of the retrieval relay operations recovered on Friday the belongings of the passengers, including identification cards, cash, mobile phones, and a laptop. Cessna 340 was carrying 4 passengers, a pilot, a crew, and 2 Australian nationals. President Bongbong Marcos visited Cebu this morning, leading the launch of an outlet of Kadiwa, an agricultural initiative. Let's listen in.
Bukod sa pag-market ng mga agricultural product, ng bigas, ng asukal, ng mga gulay, ay ito rin ay binibigyan natin ng pagkakataon. Alala ninyo, nung kampanya, sinisigaw namin, kailangan natin tulungan ng mga MSMEs, yung ating micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises. At binigyan natin ng pagkakataon ng ating MSMEs na meron ngayong merkado, meron ngayong palengke para sa kanilang mga produkto. Patuloy po aming gagawin ito. Patuloy namin gagawin, padadamihin natin, palalakihin natin, at pararamihin natin. Mas importante ay paramihin, lalo na sa mga lugar na talagang hirap ang tao at hindi pa kaya ang mga presyuhan kung nasa palengke. Kaya ito na ang aming sagot doon sa nagiging krisis dito sa ating pagkain, sa ating pagtaas ng presyo.
President Marcos Jr. has said that Kadiwa outlets in the country will continue to offer basic goods at lower prices. The program will continue to widen its reach in the national level, covering more places. The Kadiwa program aims to promote local products and empower the farming community by providing a direct farm-to-consumer food supply chain, eliminating several marketing layers and allowing producers to earn more while providing consumers with affordable, high-quality, local products. Now, President Bongbong Marcos Jr. also headed to the South Road properties for the groundbreaking of the Phase 1 of Cebu City's government's South Coastal Urban Development, or SCUD, project, which includes medium-rise buildings for families displaced by the city's clearing of structures built within the 3-meter basement of the 8 major waterways. Take a look.
Marami-rami po tayong bahay na dapat na itayo. Kaya hangad ko na patuloy nating itaguyod ang programang ito. Nagsisimula na po tayo sa paghahanda ng mga lupa at pagtatayuan ng mga housing units sa ilalim ng 4PH program. Patuloy din ang pagkikipag-ugnayan ng DHSUD sa ating mga LGU upang makapagpatayo ng mas marami pang bahay sa iba't ibang parte ng bansa. Ito ay isang halimbawa sa ating approach na ginagawa na sinasabi whole of government ang tumutulong. Ang proyektong ito at iba pang mga pabahay ng 4PH ay para sa mga minimum wage earners, ang ating mga informal settlers, mga nakatira sa mga danger zone, at sa mga kababayan natin naghahangad ng mura, simple at komportableng bahay. Sisiguruhin natin na mananatiling abot kaya ang buwanang hulog at bayad para sa mga bahay na ito. Kaya patuloy po ang ating pakikipag-ugnayan sa Kongreso upang maging matagumpay ang programang ito.
Now, DHSUD Undersecretary Gary De Guzman said each housing unit will cost around 1.15 million pesos. With 30,000 units committed, the DHSUD support is valued at 33.45 billion pesos. Under the current market rate of 6% interest, housing beneficiaries will pay around 6,500 pesos per month for a period of 30 years in order to own their unit. But with the national government subsidy, the interest rate will be reduced to only 1%, bringing their monthly amortization to only 3,500 pesos. The MRBC said that the city will source funds for are 4 to 5 stories tall with at least 100 units each. And these include the pledges to finance 1 MRB each by so far 8 of the country's major developers, the Arthur Land, Ayala Land, Deca Homes, the MCI Homes, Philinvest, Metro Pacific Investments Corp., Robinson's Land Corp., and SM Prime Holdings Incorporated. The SCOT project is the offshoot of the Memorandum of Understanding signed last November last year between the city and the DHSUD to construct around 30,000 housing units as part of the national government's program. After several delays, the long-awaited Cebu Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT, finally broke ground today after more than a decade since it was envisioned. President Marcos led the lowering of the time capsule during the groundbreaking ceremony of the Cebu Bus Rapid Transit Project Package 1.
I convey my gratitude to our partners from the World Bank and the French Development Agency for being the active partners that they have to be able to realize this project, the modern public transport system in Cebu and the first one in the Philippines. When the Secretary assures us that we will start at least the start operations by December, I think that they will be able to do it on time as the record speaks for itself. I want to remind the DOTR to ensure the just compensation of the property owners who will be affected by the CBRT project. I also urge you to find ways that to properly relocate the affected informal settler families. On this note, this has spanned years and across many administrations, and it is modeled after the other BRT systems, such as the ones that we see in Seoul, in South Korea, in Guangzhou, in China, amongst others. And this is package 1 that we are breaking ground on today. Package 1 that will construct a 2.38 kilometer segregated bus lane with 4 bus stations. It will also include a 1.15 kilometer pedestrian improvement, which will link the CBRT system to the port of Cebu. The entire CBRT system, there are 3 phases. The entire CBRT system, which comprises 3 packages, is designed to accommodate 83 12-meter buses by its opening year. In the future, this will be increased and expanded to accommodate more and longer buses. Apart from the greater convenience that it will bring to our people, I'm sure it will also provide greater opportunities and improve the conditions of our current public transport drivers. I trust it will also support economic development through travel time savings, environmental improvements, and reduction of accidents among residents and visitors of the city. As part of this endeavor, we will also pursue the urban realm enhancement projects for the beautification of the city along the BRT corridor. This will include the building of structures that promote non-motorized modes of travel, like walking, like bicycle lanes. And as we begin this project, I know that there will be slight inconveniences and traffic congestion, as if Cebu does not have enough, but we will have to accommodate the construction process for the greater benefits that will come in the future. I invite everyone to remain patient, to be considerate, as these temporary disturbances and interruptions are aimed at pushing long-term benefits for the city and for the province.
In other news, 3 freed hostages arrived at Port Moresby Airport after a week of negotiations between police and armed kidnappers. Professor Bryce Barker, a New Zealand citizen who lives in Australia, was originally captured at gunpoint with 3 colleagues as they took part in a field study trip near Mount Bosavi. Take a look.
Successful release of the 4 hostages happened.
It does not negate the criminality that was involved or had taken place throughout this ordeal, and we're very much committed to ensuring that those who are responsible are held to account.
The way it happened, it was a random opportunities crime that took place, but something that I condemned in the strongest term possible. And Police are still at work up there. Police has not concluded work. The first stage of the operation has been concluded. The second stage is simple. Those criminals, turn yourself into the hands of police. Make it easy for yourself and the communities up there. Our police will still be in pursuit of those who engage in such horrible criminal enterprise.
Professor Bryce Barker, alongside his two Papua New Guinean colleagues, were seen walking across the tarmac alongside police at Port Moresby's airport after officials announced their safe release. Barker, a professor at Australia's University of Southern Queensland, and the two women were taken hostage at gunpoint last Sunday in a remote and densely forested region near Mount Bosavi. This is about 570 kilometers northwest of Port Moresby. Now, Prime Minister Marape said all three appeared unharmed, although obviously traumatized after the random opportunist crime. Earlier this week, the captors released another woman who was also part of the group of academics working in the area when they were kidnapped. Police had been negotiating with the hostage takers, who initially demanded a ransom of $1 million, an enormous sum in one of the Pacific's poorest nations, before dropping the asking price and abandoning a 24-hour deadline. Australia's and New Zealand's foreign ministers welcomed the news and thanked Papua New Guinea authorities for their work. G20 finance ministers failed to adopt a joint statement on the global economy at talks in India after China sought to water down references to the Ukraine war. Take a look.
Two countries had a reservation. So with a footnote, certainly a communique can't go out. And therefore, it had to be a chair summary and an outcome document. Russia and China. They didn't want those two paragraphs to be in the communique because it was all agreed by all countries except for these two. And what did they not agree? They didn't agree to those two paragraphs because the leaders had prepared that in the Bali summit, and it was fine for a circumstance, for the circumstances which prevailed then. And therefore, now they didn't want it.
We'll start with Russia. Both Russia and China took a position that finance minister and central bank governors, their mandate is to deal with economic and financial issues. They should not get into the global geopolitical issues. So they did not comment on the language part. They said it is not their domain, so they will not comment on the language part. So there is absolutely no change vis-a-vis what the leaders had agreed in the Bali declaration.
Because the vulnerable countries are looking up to the G20 to find some solution, some kind of arrive at a position whereby their debt stress can be relieved. And many of them have been waiting for a very long time. So if we could arrive after so much of negotiation at a common position for a language on dealing with debt, I think the G20 is now standing up to meet the challenges of debt stress which many countries are facing.
Now, Russia, for its part, accused the United States, the European Union, and the G7 nations of disrupting the ministers' meeting by trying to force through a joint statement on Ukraine. After no agreed-upon final statement was reached, current G20 President India issued a chair summary which said most members strongly condemned the war in Ukraine and that there were different assessments of the situation and sanctions at the two-day meeting in Bengaluru. China wanted to change the language of the declaration from November, officials told AFP, with one saying on condition of anonymity that Beijing wished to remove the word war. Western countries, including the United States, Germany, and France, had insisted the language in any joint statement could not be weaker than the communique issued by G20 leaders in Indonesia in November. Russian tourists are fleeing to Thailand to escape the war in Ukraine or look to move to the Southeast Asian country. Thailand has become a haven for Russian visitors who are looking to escape Moscow's war in Ukraine, and that has now entered its second year. Visitors are in Thailand, but they are fleeing Russia too, since Thailand fully reopened its borders and dropped COVID restrictions in October. Russian arrivals have made up the third largest group of visitors, only behind Malaysia and India, according to government data. Now, thousands of Russians are looking for a new home, fearing economic woes in Russia and a military draft because of the Kremlin's war in Ukraine. Thailand has long been a popular holiday destination for Russian tourists. Thailand and Russia are close trading partners, and in 2019, Russia was Thailand's seventh largest market for tourism. Thailand hasn't followed the lead of Western countries and banned Russian visitors. Russian tourists have taken advantage of that. For the months of October, November, and December, Russian arrivals into Thailand were more than 331,000, according to data released by Thailand's Ministry of Sport and Tourism. Thousands of those arrivals have also been investing, buying property, or renting long-term in Thailand. In an era of vaccine rollouts and pandemic control measures, people are welcoming the return of a different type of infection carrier, the travel bug. Creating new vacation ideas, would-be tourist visits, travel and adventure shows in Los Angeles, California for inspiration on planning their next big trip. Here's Eva and Alan Basaliaje for the report.
Globally, the travel industry had been taking it on the chin because of the pandemic, but now domestic and international trips are rebounding.
And so too are events like Los Angeles Travel and Adventure Show, where destination experts help globe-trotting wanderers plan their next big adventure.
Everyone wants to go to Japan in the spring season, and we highly recommend it. On this tour package, you will be able to experience and see all these like lovely cherry blossoms like everywhere. I feel like Japan has like a lot of like scenic locations to visit. They have mountains, like rivers. They have like a lot of like good places to visit.
We try to bring to this trade show the Brazil experience. So we have a little bit of everything. We have like Brazilian music going on, and then we also have Brazilian food here. We're also holding some events to travel advisors to show a little bit of our destinations, how to get there, how to do business with Brazil in terms of the travel industry.
We are providing Korean street food, which is named bungeoppang. When you go to Korea, you can find this kind of food, street food, everywhere. We enjoy mingle with people. We especially love Filipino. That's why, you know what, the number 1 or 2 source market to visit Philippines is Korea. Korean people love Boracay, Cebu, and Manila. Filipinos, like us, we are very similar. The only things between us is just the sea.
To truly experience different cultures, travel show host Rick Steves recommends people to live like a native.
If you are eating and sleeping in a way that you're in your own culture in a high-rise American-style hotel, and you venture out, you're cutting your experience in half for no reason. So I want the immersion. I want to stay in a comfortable, well-located hotel that connects me with the culture. I want to be a cultural chameleon. I want to eat and drink what the local people drink. I don't want to stay on the rooftop of my hotel and eat what other Americans are eating. My basic mission is to inspire and equip Americans to venture beyond Orlando. And Europe is a good first step, and if you have a good trip, then the whole world becomes your playground.
Attendees not only discover places to visit, but once they arrive there, also bring the know-how they learned from this show to fit in as one of the locals.
Speaking of, I thought you were going with a traditional Polynesian outfit.
Nope, nobody needs to see me in that.
Eva and Allen, Los Angeles, California, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Giant inflatable sea creatures and cartoon characters hovered above a field as kite enthusiasts from around the world congregated at the 25th Pasir Gudang World Festival for the first time since 2019. Take a look.
Because we haven't been here for a long time, so when we come back, it's like coming back home or coming back to friend's house or family's house, something like that. So feel like home here.
This remember my childhood because I used to play this kite, so I want my kids to also experience the same.
Well, my role is to bring smiles to people's faces. Children come to these kite festivals and these huge kites are fabulous creatures, but they can really relate to something quite small. The best kite flyers are here. It's also an extremely welcoming place. It's great to be in Malaysia. The Malaysian public really warm to the international flyers.
Now, the 5-day festival returned to Malaysia's Johor state after a 3-year pandemic pause. Over 100 participants from 40 countries flew their kites, which included South Korean rapper Psy, a giant galloping horse, a transformer robot, and a menacing octopus. The Kite Festival was held from February 22 to the 26th. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles reminding you to stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.